Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name. Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard. His feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world marveled and followed the beast. So they worshipped the dragon who gave authority to the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast? Who is able to make war with him?"
Imagine waking up one morning and discovering that the planet Jupiter had collided with a rogue planet. What thoughts would be going through your mind? Would you think of how this would affect the Earth in the years to come? Or would you just glance over the information and continue with your day? The secret that was discovered describes just such an event. It reveals major celestial upheavals that will begin in September of 2017, starting with a collision between Jupiter and a rogue planet. And it provides a roadmap to the culmination of an extinction-level event that is set to occur on March 28 of 2021, when the Earth will encounter this debris field. The book describes a very unusual and unique celestial alignment that we now know through technology available to us has only occurred twice in the Earth's history, having approximately 6,000 years between these occurrences. The first instance is seen in the heavens on August 5th, 3915 BC, and the next occurrence is currently in the making, and concludes on September 23rd of 2017, a date that every person will clearly remember one way or another. The celestial alignments involve the constellation Virgo, which is in labor for 9 months, being pregnant with the planet Jupiter. She is clothed with the sun, has the moon at her feet, and wears a crown of 12 stars on her head. These two alignments are linked to a prophecy and a vision in this ancient book that describes major celestial events to us, telling us both what will happen and when to expect these events to occur. In both alignments, Jupiter is the focus of the action. The moon acts as a trigger or marker to indicate the relative position of Jupiter in the constellation Virgo when the prophesied events will transpire. 3 of the stars in the crown of Virgo's head are wandering stars or planets, and they convey a specific message that links the events described in the prophecy and the vision to their respective alignments. The first event in the sequence involves a cataclysmic collision with Jupiter as soon as it is birthed from Virgo's womb. In addition to this, the Shoemaker-Levy 9 comet, which impacted with Jupiter in July of 1994, was a sign given to us to mark the area on Jupiter that will be affected by this collision. If you think that this is just a hoax, wait for September and then keep an eye on Jupiter around September 9th, or shortly thereafter, to know that this ancient book was not written by a person who is bound to space and time, and contains the absolute truth. The second alignment marks an event that will occur 2 weeks later on September 23rd. After the first event occurs, you can have 100% certainty that the second event will also occur, as the first will be a sign given to the world to point to the more important event occurring on September 23rd. The events that will occur on this day will affect every person alive on Earth in a very profound way, and you want to be ready for this when it happens. To find out more about what will happen and how to be ready, please watch the videos in this channel, where more details are provided. Your life literally depends on it.
Washington State.
You are welcome.
The M5.8 earthquake is the largest earthquake in years hitting the region of Yellowstone National Park in Montana. The earthquake was detected on Wednesday, 6 miles from Lincoln in Montana. The strong M5.8 earthquake was followed by 2 moderate quakes of M4.5 and M3.9. They expect more aftershocks, maybe even larger. Reports have started to flood in, they point to extreme volcanic activity. People in the park reported strange sulfur smells, loud bangs and pops. Here are a number of the reports from Yellowstone. House shaking, fixtures moving, heard structure making cracking noise, pet bird would not calm down in her cage. Shook bed, moved bed enough to disconnect a plug-in, outside deck moved and creaked. Others reported strong rolling shake with strong afterquake. This is the same type of report we have seen right before many volcanoes blow. We have seen a number of reports of strange animal behavior. Heard deep rumbling both times, light items swayed, the dog came over to lean against my legs. Another person was working on their laptop in bed and everything started shaking, the headboard rattling against the wall. As they hurried out into living room and kitchen, items displaced and pendant lights swaying back and forth. Another report that worried us even more, strangely, one very strong gust of wind, extreme sulfur smell blew through the open windows of the house just prior to the earthquake. There was a strong jolt that shook the walls of the log cabin and a couple minutes later there was a distinct but more gentle, rolling aftershock. Almost 300 miles away in Heron, Montana it shook their house, but was more like a strong jolt, like the earth was moving. Normally we don't see reports like this, the ground felt like a wave on the ocean. Was woken up instantly, whole house was swaying back and forth, it made our cat run and hide and start meowing, and worried my wife, the sound was loud and many items fell over, car alarms went off in the city. Other reports about apartment buildings, they jiggled like jello. A number of strange sounds. One family was staying in a hotel and heard thunder and thought that was what I was feeling, then realized it was an earthquake. Another report of strange smells. I was just lying down in bed when the fan in my window and the blinds started rattling. I felt the bed sway and I looked around. The blinds were visibly moving and the fan made noises similar to when a big windstorm is occurring and blows strongly from the west into the window but with a strong sulfur odor. My mother, who is visiting and staying in the basement room, also felt the movement while she lay in bed reading. She came upstairs for a 10 to 15 minutes and after she went back downstairs, there was another slight tremble, she thought the sewer lines had exploded. The magma is on the move. Earthquakes and volcanoes are intimately linked. They are both products of the plate tectonic process that is constantly reshaping the surface of the Earth. But even beyond that, earthquakes are some of the best clues we have that a volcano might be heading towards an eruption. So, why are there earthquakes in the days, months, years before a volcano erupts, and why do some earthquakes lead to an eruption and some don't? Well, it is a little more complicated than it seems. You have to study the clues. This earthquake should worry anyone in the United States. We're talking about earthquakes that are leading up to an eruption. The key reason they occur is magma on the move. Most magma that is the source of volcanism in places like Iceland, the Cascades, Sicily, and almost every volcano on the planet is initially formed by melting the mantle, many kilometers beneath our feet. That magma is buoyant because it is hot, chock full of gases and made of less dense material than the rock around it, so it rises. You smell sulfur. You see reports like this. Did you feel anything?
Astrophysicists from the University of Arizona have compelling evidence which suggests that a planetary object with a Mars-to-Earth mass is most likely lurking in the solar system. This object would be much closer than the so-called Planet 9, which is still awaiting confirmation from astronomers. The orbital body has given away its presence by observations which show that it is presently controlling the orbital plane of the Kuiper Belt in the outer regions of our solar system. The Kuiper Belt lies beyond the orbit of Neptune, where a host of icy bodies and dwarf planets dwell. So the on-scene mass would have to be equivalent to the mass of Mars or Earth to be capable of warping the orbital plane of the outer solar system. According to calculations, an object with the mass of Mars or Earth orbiting roughly 60 AU from the Sun, or an orbit that is tilted by 8 degrees to the plane of the known planets, would have the required gravitational influence to warp the orbital plane of the outer solar system. An AU in astronomical terms is the equivalent of approximately 95 million miles, the distance from the Earth to the Sun. So take 60 and multiply it by the 95 million, and you can see just how many miles from the Sun we are talking about here. And yet this object has the capability of warping the orbital plane of the belt for as far as 10 AU on either side. And then we are talking about something quite extraordinary here. We continue to get information in bits and pieces from the scientific community pertaining to new discoveries in our solar system. Every few months we get announcements from NASA and other space organizations that new planets and star systems have been discovered in our backyard. If there is something of significant importance to tell the world, then the disclosure must be slow and precise as a means to get out in front of the story before it becomes too obvious to the watchful eye. For decades, the public has been told that there is nothing out there. There is no Planet X or any other rogue planet that exists in our solar system. That is what they told us, and they made sure that the media reported in the same manner. But everything has changed now. They can no longer control what is happening. As things become more obvious to the public, then the truth can no longer be kept in the dark. So expect more announcements from NASA very soon, as things are really getting serious. They know it, we know it, and time has a way of revealing all things. There is a lot of anticipation for the big event that will happen later this summer. On August 21st, a major solar eclipse will pass over half of the planet. But the interesting details of this particular eclipse is that the path of its totality will bring total darkness to only one country, the United States. Solar eclipses have long been considered as harbingers of disasters for the Gentile nations. For those of you who follow the words of Scripture, this particular passage may hold great meaning in correlation to the upcoming eclipse. Now, I am not an interpreter of the spoken word, but if you study these words carefully, you may notice that the timing of this passage appears to be quite concise. So what is the correlation between this passage of Scripture and the major solar eclipse of 2017? There is something unprecedented and extraordinary that will take place on August 21st. When the sun rises on this date in the United States, it will do so in total darkness. So that you may understand, the sun will be totally dark when it rises above the horizon on that date. This event would then relate to the ending verses of the passage in Isaiah, an exact correlation if the event happens as anticipated. If the scripture holds any meaning to you, then this eclipse would have to be the one that occurs prior to the actual day of the Lord, which will happen during the Feast of Trumpets in September. It cannot be interpreted any other way. Now, if anyone has any doubts about the significance of this solar event, then take a look at how this event will play out. This map indicates the precise route of this major summer event. As you can see, it will cross over the heartland of the United States from the northwest to the southeast. The focus of this event will be squarely over the United States, which makes this an exceptionally rare occurrence in historical terms for this country. The total eclipse of 2017 will be visible from a narrow corridor, which makes the eclipse even more interesting, as you can see here. The path of the August eclipse crosses the path of the upcoming eclipse of April 2024, which is almost 7 years to the date. Does the number 7 sound familiar to you? It is the time of the day of the Lord as described in the book of Revelation. These two eclipses are therefore placing a huge emphasis on the United States. So stay tuned, folks. There are some interesting times ahead of us. If you spend time searching the internet on the subject of Planet X, you're bound to come upon a number of essays and articles that explain a possible catastrophe scenario caused by extraterrestrial sources, such as a Planet 9 or a large brown dwarf planet, which is basically a failed star. There have been several scientific studies floating around that are attempting to find evidence of its existence beyond Neptune. But since scientists remain in disagreement on whether the planet actually exists, the matter hasn't garnered much attention lately. So the theory of a Planet 9 may have gone silent in the short term, but the notion that something is out there lurking in our solar system is still very much alive. After all, something is affecting the entire solar system and potentially threatening our planet. And so an explanation must be forthcoming. It is very likely that scientists have been playing a game of deceit when they talk about Planet 9. Depending on who is conducting the study, the planet is either very real and it is creating a warp pull in the solar system, or it is still a hypothetical planet. So how can both be true? How many times have we heard critics say that if the planet were on a collision course with Earth, it would be seen by now? And yet these same people have never been able to rule out the likelihood of its existence. Here is an interesting statistic that you may not be aware of. According to the Stern Review on the Economics of Climate Change, a report which was conducted for the British government in 2006, people are 5 times more likely to perish in an extinction-level event than by any other means known to man. Therefore, the risk of human extinction due to a major calamity, whether that be man-made, natural, or extraterrestrial, could be much higher than anyone would have ever imagined. Every year there is a higher risk of a supervolcano erupting or an asteroid strike on the planet. Both would be devastating at ground zero, but they would also kick up dust into the atmosphere, blocking sunlight and causing global temperatures to plunge. But these are not the only risks that we are facing. What about a genetically engineered pandemic or geoengineering gone awry? Statistical models are showing, whether we agree with them or not, that the planet could see an extraterrestrial event in the form of a hazardous near-Earth object in our lifetime. Now, these models also mention calamities caused by a rogue planet, like Nibiru or Planet X. As I mentioned at the beginning, something very odd is going on beyond Pluto. Astronomers have known for decades that something exists at the outer edge of the solar system in the vicinity of the Kuiper Belt.
We are wondering what is happening to the world. Everything is changing.
The very idea